Every time I have to speak to a bilingual audience, I prefer to give a bilingual presentation. So my slides will be in English and I will speak in Greek. Γεια σας σε όλους. Ευχαριστώ που είστε εδώ.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to talk about renewable energy strategies for sustainable development and smart grids. And we're going to have this very short reference to the importance of smart grids in the enforcement of renewables. So PPC has a very long history in the development of renewables. Ever since 1979, PPC has been recording meteorological data systematically. Ever since 1981, it established an organizational unit called Department of Alternative Energy Forms. In 1982, we have a wind park on the island of Kythnos, another one later in 1983. Then we have Evia, Crete, and we have a pilot geothermal unit on the island of Milos. In 1998, we have the establishment of Renewables SA for PPC as a 100% subsidiary of PPC, and from 2007 we have the asset transfer from PPC to PPC Renewables. The Greek electricity market and the PPC has a very strong presence in renewables, the fuel mix, the country level. You can see that by here, 21% oil, 16% hydro, major hydropower plants, 9% lignite, and 28% renewables. This power is distributed as follows: 33% lignite, 22% natural gas, 6% oil, 24% hydropower, and only 1% renewables, which is managed by PPC Renewables. PPC Renewables has inherited the portfolio of renewables from PPC, including renewables for energy production. It has a portfolio of 153 megawatt, 20% from wind parks, 17 small hydropower plants, and only 7% from small photovoltaic parks. In the decade 2007-2017, it invested 155 million euros to the development of renewables. We had considerable profit in the previous years, which is very important for us. In 2017, we produced approximately 400 gigawatts of renewables. We have 3 pipelines of investment projects with a total power of 4,000 megawatt total capacity. And our score is quite high. We employ 72 persons, 72 employees, highly skilled people. We have cooperation with many stakeholders, and we invest in the credibility of the system and job creation. Our strategic advantages, as we perceive them, is that we have a 100% subsidiary of the PPC SA. We are part of a very strong group of companies. The over 150 megawatt of installed power, with hydropower plants, with wind farms, and some solar parks. We are a development company from the PPC And the PPC was the first company in Greece which started the Green Revolution in 1981. We have a large project underway, a diversified portfolio, and finally we have established corporations, and we're developing cooperation with third parties in renewables. PRC Renewables has been involved in all 5 renewables: wind, solar, geothermal, biomass, and it has an ambitious plan which will improve and expand its activities with new acts like biomass and hybrid plants for geothermal energy, especially for the hybrid project of the island of Ikaria, the president of PPC has talked about. We have very important plans which will help mitigate environmental impact from climate change. We have major projects for solar plants. We have also the RFP for the biomass project and the RFP for the geothermal project. Our extrovert approach is proven by the cooperation that we have established so far. We have wind power projects with EDF, AMCO, NAMCO, TEPNA, etc. And very shortly we're going to announce new corporations and new plants. So new projects that are projects of corporations and individual as well. The portfolio of our plants, as you can see, extends all over Greece. You can see that on the map, and you can see this bar with the megawatts, the capacity that we have. Now for the production, last year's capacity, 300 gigawatt hours, mainly from wind power and geothermal. And in production, the economic value is slightly higher for hydropower compared to wind power. As you can see the numbers here. Now, what about the market of renewables? In the past decade, the renewables plants increased significantly, especially from 2010 to 2013, because we had many wind farms being constructed. You can see that we have photovoltaic plants and wind parks. So in the light blue color, we have major hydropower facilities. The green is wind. Yellow is photovoltaic, small household systems. And red is the parks. So we have come to a renewables mix, which you can see on this graph. I will not read it. Socrates talked about the market data. Now, let's see a few things about the Greek market. In the past, renewables are priced based on the FIT. Now, the pricing is based on the FIP, part of the compensation directly from the market, and the new system is going to be part of the support mechanism for the renewables. So we believe that we're going to have a reduction of the account deficit for renewables and shortest delays on market clearance. An exception from this pricing system are small wind parks, less than 3 megawatts, and small renewable units. For 2018, we're going to have the completion of auctions for 300 megawatts of photovoltaics, 300 megawatts of wind, and 400 megawatts for technology neutral, that is, without considering technology. The same level of auction capacity for 2019 based on our plans. But we believe that these units are not enough for us to achieve the national goals for 2020. The compensation mechanism protects our plans from the marginal value. If the market has higher values compared to the reference value, the producer has to return the extra to a special account for renewables. So in 2020, based on the national targets, we have to go where the graph shows. So you can see that there is a deficit here between what we are planning to do and what the national target is. In our view, some measures can be taken that will help us come closer to our targets and settle some issues that are pending at the moment. In order to strengthen and to boost our installed capacity, I believe we can't reach the targets on time. We need an extension of license duration, letters of guarantee should be valid both for the grid connection and auction participation, and then should be returned. What is also necessary is a new framework for spatial planning and sustainable development for renewable energy plants to facilitate their development. And in order to harmonize the market, we should have repowering compensation for wind and hydropower plants that have already been in operation for a number of years. We have to simplify the licensing process and try to secure investors by court claims as much as possible. So, what do we say? That the state has to make some courageous steps in order for the licensing process to be much faster, because today we need years in order to finish this process, especially for hydro plants and wind parks, especially for photovoltaic in parks and on roofs. We need a better licensing process, and this will lead to an extension of the photovoltaics without inhibiting agricultural production. The licensing framework has to be simplified. The first thing we can say is we just need a formal process in place, which shouldn't take long. We must have land use restrictions that are realistic. We must not have attractive support scheme for small plants. And for photovoltaic, we have inadequate grid. So they do not correspond with the development, and we have an increase of the cost for these plants. And roof-installed PVs should be increased, via support schemes, via auctions, net metering, etc. And the example of France is very good here. The faster permission procedure for wind parks by RAE will help us have more projects in the auctions organized. I believe that we should have more licenses for islands, connected or not, onshore or offshore parks. The total cost is not clear in Greece. We should also have flexibility for spatial planning for wind parks. And we mustn't have complicated process when we have to have the change of the area. We should have increased pace for licensing. In any case, licensing should be given very fast, and RAE should give a production permit, but it should also say that we have a compliance with the spatial planning, which is in place. For the grid, the increase of the distribution network, we must have an extension of renewable plants and the capacity of these facilities. And when we don't have a connection with the distribution network, then we should try to put them in place. A very good example is Γαϊδουρόμανδα, which is on the island of Kythnos, where PPT, together with a German organization, established an autonomous system, and it solved the lack of connection with a national network. And it has been working very well for the inhabitants of the island. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that.